My name is Frank Newman, and I'm delighted to be spending some time with you here today. We're going to talk about one of the most important things for any owner or manager, how to maximize your time with your people. And so I'm going to share some slides with you and take you on a bit of a journey and go from there. So here we go. Very good. So this presentation is called Your Best 10 Minutes. And what I've learned over the years is that whether you're a manager, an owner, a leader, time is extremely precious. You've got customer demands, you've got employee demands, you've got working with the bank, the sales team, and so on. So your time is really precious. And what I found is it's hard at times to make sure you spend the right amount of time with your people to make sure they are engaged. And so this presentation is to share with you the 5 key things you can be doing with your people that take them from indifferent to engaged. Just a little bit about Frank Newman. So I've been in the HR field for over 40 years, and my team and I support a variety of small to medium-sized businesses with all their HR needs, from performance management to recruiting to compensation. And so we've seen just about everything in the workplace, but I know most importantly how challenging it is for managers to find the time with their people. And so over the years, I've seen just about everything in the workplace, from voodoo to love triangles. I've seen businesses thrive. I've seen businesses collapse. And it's about how you spend your time. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So the challenge for you is, if you only had 10 minutes a day, how would you change your team from indifferent to committed? Because ultimately, that's what you want to do. So I'm going to talk to you about the 5 ways you can do that. So if we think about your people, what do you need from your people? Basically, you need 3 things. You need them to be productive. You need them to be producing product or delivering services. You need them to be committed, that they have excitement about your business. They want to talk about your products. They feel proud to be part of your organization. And ultimately, you want them to have some passion and some energy so they can drive that sales, they can produce those products, they can engage with customers. And ultimately, what you want them to be is engaged with your business. As I say, you want them to be passionate about it, you want them to be committed, you want them to be productive. So you need that level of engagement, because if you don't have engaged employees, all of those aspects are going to suffer. So the first question I have to ask you, let me just move this piece around here so we're not blocking that video. So why do people leave organizations? As you can imagine, there's lots of reasons. Typically it could be working conditions, it could be compensation, it could be the boss, it could be they want more interesting work. The fact is, the number one reason is the boss. It's that relationship they have with the boss that makes people excited to come in and to work in the morning, to meet with you, to work with you, and so on. So that's the most important factor. The other factors, working conditions, compensation, interesting work, are all very important. But if you can't have those great relationships with your staff, they're not going to keep coming to work, because as much as we pay people to come into work, people come into work for how they feel about the company. And again, that's what we're going to talk about, is how can you make them feel engaged with your business. So what we have here is this is the 5 C's of creative leadership. And I've developed these over a career of 40 years. I've seen not-for-profit organizations, I've seen profit organizations, I've seen manufacturing and professional practices. I've seen managers succeed and fail, and primarily for these 5 reasons. And so I've developed this theory, the 5 C's of creative leadership. So it starts with connecting, then building clarity, coaching your staff, having courage for you personally, and then having compassion for your people. And this unique collection of 5 C's is going to drive you and your company to great heights of success. The first C is connect. So if you do nothing else, connecting with your employees is absolutely critical. It's worth 80%. As you know, if you're not in the room, nothing happens. If you're even in the room, you get 80% score. So what we're looking for our leaders and yourselves is, first of all, to be physically present as much as you can. So if you have a factory, when you want to be walking around, we don't want you in your office. We want people to be mentally present. So when you are talking with a team member, you're paying attention to them. You're not checking your emails. You're not taking phone calls. And these are really important and they make a difference. Now, one of the challenges we got these days is the fact that we have people working hybrid. So in fact, you may not even see your people in person for a long period of time. But making sure whether they are physically or remotely working, you do need to reach out to them and you need to make sure you understand what their motivations are. You need to be listening to them. And even if you just pick up the phone and say, how are things going? That counts for a lot because it says ultimately that you care about them. But if you're not connecting with them, if you're in your office, if you're eating lunch in your office rather than in the cafeteria, that's not to your advantage. So ultimately, as I say, we come to work for those connections. And there's nothing worse than having a boss that's completely remote and nobody ever sees them. So again, think about your day-to-day schedule. Are you connecting with people on a regular basis? Are you out there? And again, it makes a huge difference because if you're not connecting, how are you going to understand what's going on with them? The second C is clarify. And I've seen so many organizations struggle because people are just not sure about what's important and what's not important. And so taking time to clarify is absolutely important. And it starts with your job description. Do you have a clear job description? It starts with the mission and vision for the company. What do we want to achieve here? What are the values? What are the behaviors we want? And I remember doing a training session for people, and the CEO talked about the business and all that good stuff and where they were expanding. And somebody said, well, what does it take to be successful here? And to be honest, that is the number one question that people want to know, because if they have clarity around what it takes to be successful, they will move towards that. So whether it's having a collaborative environment, whether it's having a team environment, whether you want people to be competitive, it's important to clarify that because I've seen so many organizations waste time because they haven't clarified things. And people keep going back to the managers or keep fumbling around to try and understand what is important. So if you find yourself having to repeat yourself to people or people are making the same mistakes, take the time to clarify that because that is so important. And if people have clarity, they can achieve remarkable things. But if you're not clear, you're going to deliver the wrong product, you're going to talk to the wrong customer, you're going to behave in the wrong way. So make sure you invest time identifying those areas where you need to clarify things. The next step that's really important is coach. And in the past, we've had different schools of management where managers will have to manage. And if you manage, you're telling someone exactly what to do. Today's generation of employees and workers want a different type of manager. They want someone who is going to be a coach for them. If we think about how many professional coaches, there's a coach for fitness, there's a coach for nutrition, there's a wellness coach. So we're evolving to a coaching culture. And so for coaching, the difference between coaching and managing is with coaching, you're going to be trying to give people the tools to solve the problem themselves. If you're constantly telling people what to do, they're not learning. And so this three-circle model you see here is designed to basically get you through a coaching discussion. And it's quite simple. You basically start the question with, how can I help? So how can I as a manager provide resources? Then you shift it to how can we fix it? So how do you work collaboratively with your staff member to solve the problem? And then finally, and the most important question you can ask is what will you do? So what actions will the employee take? What solutions will they come up with? Because again, you don't want to take the burden of solving the problem on yourself, but you want to get them to think about it. And then you can move back into how can I help or how can we work on this? But if you find yourself constantly telling people, do this, do that, That's not going to last for a long time, and you're going to be exhausted. So ideally, we want to have them come back to you with the problem and see you as a coach, because ultimately, most people know the right thing to do. They have the knowledge and the technical information, so they can move this ahead. But don't solve the problem for them. Invite them to solve it, and at the end of it, they will say, "Well, that was a great coaching session." The fourth C is courage, and courage is something, it works on many, many different levels. And there's probably three areas where I see a lack of courage in organizations. And I see so many failures in organizations because people haven't been courageous. And at some point in our life, we need to step up to the plate with these things. But often I've seen organizations fail because a manager or an employee wasn't courageous enough. So let me talk about the three courages that are most important. The first one is the courage to give honest feedback. This can be a challenge for people because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. And so sometimes people will go for years not getting real feedback. And so it really is a gift to give that. I mean, it can be difficult at times. You need to make sure you create the right setting for the feedback and so on. But I've seen people work in organizations for years not getting any feedback and then wondering why they don't get promoted. Or the fact is that they've got a behavior that's been driving people crazy for years. And they don't understand why things are not happening for them. And so taking the time to address the elephant in the room is so important. So make sure you take your time to give people real feedback. It's tough, but what you'd be surprised is that many of my clients' employees come to me and say, I never get any feedback. And for most of us, we think that would be a terrible thing. But on the other hand, it is so rewarding. And at the end of it, you'll find that you've resolved problems much faster by giving them that feedback. The second courage is around the courage to make tough decisions. And when you're dealing with people, the most difficult decision, quite frankly, is to terminate someone, is to say that they're no longer suited for this organization. And I have seen far too many organizations where managers haven't the courage to address this. And this person has been misbehaving for 5 years, and everyone knows they should go, but management says, oh, we're going to be nice guys and keep them on. In the end, it hurts the organization and the person who's affected. Because what I've often found is that if people are not working out and they have been terminated, ultimately they actually get a job that's better suited and probably pays more, because if someone's not working out, they're probably not happy. And so that's impacting the workplace. But I also know, because I've been terminated twice myself, I know how painful that is. And I know managers struggle to make that decision. But often it's the toughest decision you can make as a manager, but often it can be the best for the organization if all other coaching methods have failed. The final courage is the courage to basically look in the mirror and say, what am I not doing right? What feedback should I be receiving? And what are my own limitations? Because by asking ourselves that question, we're able to move ahead and address our blind spots. And so, as a owner or a leader or a manager, I encourage people to look at themselves in the mirror, but also, talk to your staff. Say, are there things I could be doing better? And be open to that feedback, because feedback is a gift. And if we don't ask for it, particularly if you're a leader, you're not going to get it. And so have the courage to ask for that. You may not like what you hear at first, but again, we want to make sure that we don't have blind spots ourselves. The final C is compassion. And typically, that's not something you'd think is important in a leader. But in today's environment, particularly given what we've been through over the last 2.5 years with COVID and that, having compassion allows people to connect with you. It allows you to be yourself. It's also about creating psychological safety for people, so that if people are having a bad day, we understand that, we can acknowledge that, and we can move on. But it is so important to be able to share that as a leader. And the greatest leaders in mankind are actually leaders we remember because of their compassion. It's not because they were driving and making forced changes. It's because of their compassion. And again, it comes back to connecting emotionally with people. So understanding that you yourself are a human being, and if you're having a bad day, let people know. It doesn't hurt because again, you are human. So again, we want people to relate to us, but we also want to make sure that we understand what's motivating them. Uh, and you want to be able to build that trust and compassion so people will confide in them. The other piece that I challenge people is will I bend the rules? And so sometimes as a leader or as a business owner, you need to bend the rules a little bit. And I had a situation many years ago where I was an HR manager, and one of our employees phoned me and said my husband is dying of cancer, and I need 3 months to be with him because that's all he's got left. And so I broke the rules and I put her on sick leave, although she wasn't sick. And so she took the time off with pay, which was very unusual at the time. At the end, she came back and said, Frank, thank you so much for doing that. That was great. And so after that incident, I developed a policy on compassionate leave to allow the company employees to take time off with loved ones who are in the final stages of life. And in a remarkable chain of circumstances, the federal minister of employment found out about that policy and then used that to create compassionate leave policies for Canada. So that policy is now part of employment insurance, where we have compassionate benefits for people. And so over the 20 years since that's been in place, over 30,000 people have been able to spend time with their families, family members as they're in their final stages of life. So that was an example of where bending the rules created a rather remarkable situation or policy or a benefit for people. So again, thinking about having that openness, having that compassion is absolutely critical for people. And again, as leaders, you will gain far more from compassion than you will from challenging someone or driving them into the ground with words. So my final comment to you is, as a leader, always be conscious of your role. Every time you step out on the shop floor, every time you engage with an employee, they are watching you to see what you're doing as a leader. So there's a very, very high standard. And I think sometimes we forget this. It's important for us to be human as leaders, but it's also important to be conscious of the fact that people are looking to us for guidance, decisions, and again, they're looking for us for the best of all things. So never forget that every time you walk through the office or through the plant floor, or whether you're on the phone, you are the leader. And again, be conscious of that role. It's a heavy burden to bear sometimes. So finally, these are the 5 C's. And so what I do, I encourage you to practice these, whether you take this, and one of my clients has this on their mouse pad. And if you can spend 5 minutes a day connecting with someone or clarifying someone or coaching, that's going to create a huge benefit for you. Your employees are going to be engaged, they're going to trust you, they're going to respect you, and you're going to have a much more satisfying environment and much easier for you to get your business done and to grow your business and to be able to attract, engage people to your organization. So I encourage you to take 1 or 2 of these tools, work on them, let me know how it goes. Finally, we have space for questions, but since we're on a Zoom call, we're not going to be able to take questions. And so I do invite you, if you have questions or you want to run something past me, here's my contact information. And so I'd be delighted to have a chat with someone or give them some coaching or some tips. I really believe in this process. I believe that work should be a joyful experience. I believe that everyone has the capacity to become great leaders. So thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a great day.